My name's Kevin Graham and welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm now joined by Simon Weir.
Hello again.
This might be get a bit like Soccer AM, eh?
Yeah, people are starting to talk.
Yes.
We're going to do the crossbar challenge in about 15 minutes in a smaller room.
Yes. So Simon, we've got you back on today.
Many thanks, yeah.
You're heavily involved in the Benny Lynch story.
And I was so keen, in fact, to come and help with the show and put some promotion out about the show that I came here yesterday as well. And the security guard said there's no podcast on. So it's nice to be back again and again. No, we just left rehearsals. It's the first week of rehearsals for the show. We've got some new cast in this week as well. We've got a wonderful director, Stephen Duffy's taken over the show. And it's really starting to come together. It's a hard thing to leap the words from, as all writers know, leaping the words from the stage, and actually, from the page and actually putting it onto the stage, and that's what we've seen happening this week. It's been electrifying, because everyone's been kind of preparing for it and working on it privately, and you don't see the actors once they're cast, and then you don't see the work that Stephen Purden's doing in the gym, and then suddenly, you look at it a wee bit different, and suddenly the whole thing's just coming together. And to have them in this week, although we're producing it, and we've kind of stepped back a little bit from it as well, and you let the director and the actors crack on with it, it's just flying along. It's so exciting, and everyone's really, really buzzing about it, so we are absolutely delighted with what we've seen so far.
Benny's always been a big hero of yours, isn't he?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And he's one of these flawed geniuses again that everyone kind of falls in love with and is brought up with tales of and a legend of. And we felt that I've been working on it for 7 years. It's now 7 years to this point. I'm a terrible writer, so my first script was about 5 years ago, and I remember sort of punting it around the place and getting people to look at it, and the feedback was terrible because I write history books, but I am no Pat Woods. So mine was like a sort of series of facts, but at least there was the sort of outline of a story there, and I knew this would be a great theatre version if I could get the right actor playing him. And for years I knew Stephen. I did River City with Stephen, and I came out of an audition for a series called Trust Me a couple of years ago, and I watched him just bounce from the audition room and bounce across the car park and "Aye mate," and chatted away to him. I thought, there's Benny. That's the actor I've been looking for years. And it was another 2 years from then to get a basic script together, and I just sounded him out, just messaged him and said, "Have you ever thought about playing Benny Lynch?" And he went, "It'd be a dream role, mate." And he's been training now for the last year, getting ready for it. So he's looking great. The training's gone really, really well, and he's bringing it in the rehearsal room as well. So we're just finding ways of written the stage piece that Davy Carswell has written. Davey's been on the podcast as well. Is very much it's Benny's whole life. So I don't want to give the whole game away, but it's a bit like the Titanic, the ship goes down at the end. So it's trying to tell that in a sympathetic way, not hiding from the bad stuff, but the high points are really high. The comedy was the thing that really comes out with Davy's writing as well, and that's really, really working. We've got Claire Gray in as well, who's as a newspaper vendor, who then sort of brings the news and also carries the story almost like a narrator would as well. But we've kind of changed it from being a narrator to all kind of character driven, and it's working so much better, and she's hysterical, so she brings that light and shades as well to it, because there's some really, really heavy stuff in there and some really, really high points. But that's the great thing with doing a theatre piece rather than a film. This reads, looks, and Davy's original script is very much like a television script, and making that into a theatre version where you've got light and shade, high points, low points, and then a big ending and a big sort of interval. It's a hard thing to do, because it's a top-heavy story. It's a life in 3 parts. There's this really tough childhood that Benny had, really, really tough. Both parents alcoholics. His father very much kind of distant, and he loses his family because it's basically his mum, took on other gentlemen callers, let us say at the time. And it split the family up. They were farmed out to cousins, and then they were farmed out to a woman called Ma Kelter, who's actually related to our director Stephen Duffy as well. It's a strange one, isn't it? Yeah. So Ma Kelter had 14 kids of her own and took the Lynch boys in. Him and his brother Jimmy took them in as well and kind of brought them up. And they just became part of the family. That was what the community raised the child in those days. I think that's the you see that in villages and things.
You
even
get told that
absolutely,
quite
and it was especially true of someone like the Gorbals. And what we didn't want was a misery fest of, oh, this is Florence Street and we're all deprived and we're 25 kids to a room. We're not having that. We're showing this is a night out of the theatre, and ultimately everything around all that becomes a miserablest painting, and it's not that at all. There's great humour, great levity, and it's that chat, it's that sort of there's a sort of conversational bit of telling a story, and that's what we're trying to do here. It's a play that you could put in the pavilion that would be as good and read well as at the King's. It's that kind of thing. We're not making high art. We're making something that's populist drama that people will love to come and see. And the difference, I think, with our show is that it's the life in 3 parts. You know, there is this really tough and tragic childhood. So Benny's big brother got an accident at work and got a head injury and then got meningitis and died. And he was his mentor. He was a great wee boxer himself. And he taught Benny how to fight, and the two of them would do the flying flea type fights, you know, in boxing booths and things as well. So he was loved and a very good big brother and a very good sort of almost father figure, surrogate father figure for him, and he died very young. His sister drowned. So he has all these tragedies that we're finding that maybe not as common knowledge, that then feeds into this. He comes from sort of 2 or 3 generations of perhaps hard drinking Irish, hard living, and chronic alcoholism. You know, so in a place with 47 pubs and, you know, in 2 square miles, there's a fair chance that he's going to have that gene. So it's that part of it. We're not trying to apologise. We're just trying to tell the story.
It's part of Glasgow at that time, part of the Gorbals at that time.
And the wonderful thing with something like this is because it's a period play. 1920s and 1930s and 1940s Glasgow was an amazing looking place as well. So when he comes back to Central Station, there's 100,000 people there to meet him. And Glasgow City Council don't even give him a dinner. A newspaper supplied the dinner. Was it Daily Record, Evening Times? It was Daily Record. Put a dinner on for him. Scotland's first undisputed world champion boxer, and there's not a civic reception for him. So one of the lines in the show is the Yanks would have given him a ticker tape parade, and I think that's quite a lovely, kind of. That's exactly what would have happened. You can just see it, and there's nothing for that for Benny.
Do you think that was a class film?
I think so. Class. It's without knowing. It's not as if the City Fathers now. So the City Fathers now in a similar situation. They've got a chance to put a statue up to Benny Lynch. And the T-shirt I'm wearing today is part of that campaign as well, and we're supporting that, and the show's supporting that campaign. But the difficult choice for the council now is that, you know, this is a flawed guy, you know, somebody who has got, you know, a Google search away. This is another part of the script as well. You know, you can't hide the bad stuff. You know, we had conversations and negotiations and backwards and forwards with the Lynch family as well, and the statue campaign group, and they what they really wanted was it to end on a high with him winning the world championship, and that's it. But we would be cheating the audience that way and cheating ourselves by not telling the full story. So there is a lot of negative stuff, and it's a Google search away. I think as Davey said, he actually spoke to Benny's son in America and said to him, look, you know, we have to, we'll take some stuff out, and ultimately it's going back in, because you can't start to self-edit at that point. You tell the full story, or you don't tell the story at all. And a lot of the shows we've done before, shows that have been done rather about Benny's life, have focused on different parts of his life. Whether it was in Mount Malerney, where he went to, you know, he tried out in monasteries in Ireland, and whether it's that part of focus on, or what's going on in his head, or different parts of his life. I think this is the first show that's told the whole story all the way through until his untimely death at 33. And some of the 1946, like 33 years old, you know. I mean, you're talking about somebody that's been a world champion, and within a few years is massively swollen with drink, is completely jaundiced, and his body's packed up. So although he died of, I think it was bronchial pneumonia or something, you know, it's I think the family kind of can they hold on to that a little bit, as that's what killed him. It's chronic alcoholism that killed him.
It still doesn't say, even though that was an untimely end, he still should be celebrated.
Absolutely.
Glasgow should still celebrate an undisputed world champion.
I think
We're,
so.
we're only, where we're sitting just now, we're 3 miles away from the Ratlock.
Yeah, exactly.
And there should be a statue of
Billy
Billy
Bremner, of course.
down the Ratlock.
Absolutely.
There should be. These guys came from working class communities. They came from poor areas.
Absolutely.
And they made something
Oh,
of
absolutely.
themselves.
They became world famous. And there's a point again in this play, when you look again to someone like Benny Lynch, there was a chance for him to do a world tour just after he won the world title. And he fell out with his manager because he was listening to the drunks and the arseholes in the pub that were telling them, you should be getting more money. Oh, listen, go with this other manager. No, I'll help you, Benny. And they were all pouncing off him and pouring poison in his ear. It's almost Shakespearean, this. It's like he's got all these Iagos around Othello's ear, all gelling, pouring shite into him. And he listened.
Folk didn't care anything.
Folk were going to get stuff from him. People putting a hand in your pocket and telling you something else. And that's what was happening to him. So he was dragged. He was a guy, Stephen described it beautifully. He said they were from the East End and his boys that I grew up with, who just, no matter how well they've done or whatever they do, they can never get that East End mentality out of their minds, and they get dragged down by it and they fall back into stuff. Benny was the same. He couldn't see out with Florence Street. He couldn't see out with
so
that
many
little
football
bit.
players are
Exactly the same. And I think especially more in the past they had that. Well, you don't really go. You don't go to another town. You don't go to England. You don't go to London. You don't go to the beach. I had teachers at school that said that when they were in the army in the Second World War, most of the guys that were with had never seen the sea. Just because you didn't leave your village, because life was hard and that's what you did and that's where you stayed. You lived there, you grew up, your family all lived there, you had children there, and the next generation went on.
It's when you hear stories like guys who have been on the podcast, like Jim McCallion,
Absolutely.
going to London at 16.
Oh, absolutely.
And you're going, that's fantastic.
And Jim's well-travelled career as well makes him almost a stranger in Scotland. And yet he's played Man United, he's played for this club, and he's loving it. He's got an erudite, wonderful way of talking about all these games he played in. And he was a major football character. I was privileged. I did a podcast with him before. I was privileged to meet him. I just sat agog going, Christ, Wembley, 67. So these guys are all about, but they've got a completely different mentality. And I think even listening to Pat earlier on talking about players living in the past and what it was like then and going to Lisbon and everything, then the multimedia side of it and the pressure on players now is that bit where they come off the coach to a game and they've got headphones on and they don't acknowledge the fans. It's become that, whereas they would get the tram with them.
Aye.
You know what I mean? It's that kind of, there's that big separation.
The stories, obviously, the Celtic family have lost Bully and Stevie Chalmers.
Of course.
And it's a story that Bully was the only one with a car.
Yeah,
and
of course.
They'll hitched a lift with him back and forward, and you're going, that wouldn't happen.
Just brilliant, isn't it?
There was something on social media a week or so ago about a Rangers player with a big fancy sports car sitting in. You're going, you listen to this guy's one.
Look what this guy did. The first, and I love the fact that the press have all jumped on the first British man to hold the European Cup aloft and everything as well, because that's exactly what it is. It's iconic. That image is an iconic image, and it always has been. That's the thing. Since that moment, it was people know an iconic photograph. I think when they take it as well, and that was. So
it's a symbol of hope of the working class of
Absolutely.
Scotland.
It's a victory as well. It's the same. There is a parallel with the Benny Lynch thing. There is a parallel with somebody and Billy Bremner and these guys who have just reached the top of their game. And interestingly, what Pat said, what do you do next? When you've won it, you don't. Unless you play for Real Madrid or you get into that almost travelling gypsy footballer thing where you go, oh, look, I'm just taking the last payday and I'm going here because I've done everything. You've achieved all that. What does Jock Steele do? You have to break the team up. You have to, and especially when you've got kids coming through, like the team that was coming through, the Glaciers and everything that were coming through. Just Connolly, how can you not play them? Because you would have lost them within a year had he not played them. Reading through Paul's books and everything as well about it, was like that Quality Street gang where they were just another Lisbon Lions team again. But football then was completely different. Who they were playing against was completely different. The Real Madrids, the Barcelonas, the Man Uniteds, the Rangers, the Dunfermlines, the Kilmarnocks were much tougher than the teams they're playing against now as well. So it's a different. I don't think you can use the same parallel now
not at all.
as you could then. We've not had Rangers at all featuring. The other teams, there's no new firm anymore even that we would remember coming through the 80s and 90s. So it's different.
The new firm were Steen's legacy as well.
Absolutely.
Ferguson,
Absolutely.
McLean, who well developed, even Walter Smith, who was Jim McLean's assistant.
And they all came through in that old conveyor belt, that old Scottish conveyor belt of we've had hard working lives. You know, when you're looking at years and years ago, one of the shows we were going to do, there was a one-man show, there was a Shankly show that was going to do it. It worked really, really well. And they were doing Busby next and then Steen. And the big problem was, who would you get to play Jock Stein? It's almost impossible to cast.
Wow.
And that kind of stopped the whole thing of being a trilogy. Because that was 15 years ago, and that shows you how well revered and famous his name was. And I'm talking about English producers and everything as well, not just Scottish guys have gone, very hard man almost an impossible man to cast. So it shows you. There's no one. Who do you get? Did you get a lookalike? No one has that. It was the voice that went with. You could hear the coal mines. Mm-hmm. You could hear the thing in it and the gravitas. And when he stopped the car and picked up players and gave people a lift, they were terrified. They would sit like that. Jesus, because it's Mr. Stein. He was Mr. Stein when he was a young man.
We were with Danny, and he still calls Jock Mr. Stein.
Mr. Stein.
Mr. Stein.
Yeah, because it's Jock. They wouldn't dare say it, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. I think, and players. That's why it's really interesting doing this boxing show as well. That it links with something like a Jock Stein and a Jimmy Johnson. And there's something that makes this guy tick and this guy work for this guy. Mm-hmm. And they just gel. And that's the guy. That's the avuncular. Also, school teacher, hard disciplinarian that gets the best out of these guys, they're almost as an esprit de corps there that's like a military, brigade. They'll live and die for this manager. Mm-hmm. And Benny had that with Sammy Wilson as well. And there's a point in his life, and it's in the show, where he had this chance to be, you're going to be Scotland's first world champion. Benny, let's take you to South Africa, because it's the days of the British Empire then. Mm-hmm. It's still days of, these. If you went to South Africa, there is half of Britain will come. You'll be doing training sessions in front of 100,000 people. It's that sort of thing. Touring all over America, they do a 2-year tour, a round the world tour of Scotland's first world champion. Would have, I think, dried him out, got him away from the hangers on, got him away from the drink, kept him with Sammy Wilson, and I think he would have been a very, very good Scottish champion and someone to be really proud of in Glasgow. And instead of that, he listened to the arseholes and the hangers on, and he left Sammy Wilson.
I still think Glasgow, the Gorbals, should be proud of him.
Absolutely.
And it's something that
the statue should be,
the city leaders really have to revisit.
Yeah.
They've got to revisit that. But it was off his time.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was off his time.
Physically as well, physically off his time.
You can't put modern day society
mores and
morals
exactly
onto somebody who was of his time.
Exactly.
I mean, when you have a look at it, it's even still to this day, boxing and football has seen the two ways to get out of poverty.
Exactly.
And you see great work that boxing gyms do
Absolutely.
up and down the country to get kids off the street, getting them fit.
Amazing stuff. But there's not enough of them, and part of that was there's a big campaign in England as well, and a lot of estates to get a boxing gym in. Mm-hmm. Just put a boxing gym in, it takes the frustration out. People are putting down knives. If they've got a territorial battle, put it in the ring. Mm-hmm. The way it was here, we had it right in the 1920s and 1930s. You don't need boxing booths at Glasgow Green, but have somewhere for kids to vent spleen and sort things out.
Give them discipline.
Absolutely, and it works. And let them train themselves. Train this rage into something they can really use. It makes them stand better. It makes them stand taller. It gives them confidence.
They've got it with football. They've got the street football.
The street football works.
Football
it needs to be rolled across though, because again, these things fall down in the state's facilities. Mm-hmm. Or somebody vandalises it, or a car drives across the pitch, and a £1 million pitch is destroyed. Mm-hmm. They're not going to keep putting down a £1 million pitch. Things have got to be self-policed, and they've got to look after it. I get lots of messages, especially with the Cathkin Park thing as well, about people destroying timbers, burnt out cars on the pitch. And there is a bored vandalism, a mindless vandalism that happens if you have nothing to do in no direction. And part of that very much is something like boxing gyms. It worked very much in Edinburgh as well. It was Bradley Welsh, who was unfortunately just murdered recently, was doing the same thing. Food banks, free boxing in communities. If somebody lost their job, they didn't pay to box. It's like, I think Brad would just find out and pay the dues for them as well. That sort of stuff builds a community. And that's the model that could be rolled across every estate in Scotland.
Brad himself came from a difficult background.
Absolutely.
And chose a couple of wrong paths in life, but boxing...
Of course he did, but boxing ultimately started him and was his salvation. Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely true, Brad. And it's just unfortunate that people don't let you go. Whatever happened, they don't let you... You're never quite free of it. But boxing is. I've always been in love with boxing. I've been to every big fight there was, and I boxed myself years ago. In the Bonnie Lynch, I remember Bobby Carlyle announced that he was going to play Benny Lynch, and it was going to be a film, because at the time Anne, Benny's widow, was still alive, and she loved Hamish Macbeth. It was her favourite programme. She said the only person that she would allow to play Benny would be Bobby Carlyle, and he got too old. But we all went, every actor in Scotland went, I'll take up boxing again. I hadn't done it for 10 years. I got 3 broken ribs. I went into Barry Winter's gym down in Clydebank. 3 broken ribs first day. Fucking hell. So it's nice now to be finally, and it's taken me 7 years to try and get it from I will do this play on this, to now we're 2 weeks away from it actually happening. I'm delighted.
I remember meeting Pat Clinton in a pub in Croy.
Yeah. I saw him fight on the Eubank undercard. Baby Jake Mathala, I think.
Oh, that's right, aye.
Now, Baby Jake Mathala, I went to see Eubank fight the week before. No, trained the week before. He was at the SECC, and it was funny. He was going,
ITV Saturday.
Yeah, he was proper. And then he did a deal with Sky and then lost his title. Idiot. But he was hysterical. I met him in town one time as well. And I used to see him in Brixton all the time with his truck would park up. And he'd go out and get his hair shaved and all that there as well. But he was hysterical fun. But I remember him doing a warm-up session, and he did these open, you paid a $5 or something, it was an open training session, and he knocked his pan in, and he did all sorts of, almost sort of kung fu and moves. It was a really different style he did, and he put all these different disciplines together and honed it in New York, so he was a real deal, Eubank.
He was, aye.
And to watch him train, and he was talking about Nicky Piper, and he walked up, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and he punched her in the arm right at the side. Nicky Piper, he fights like, poof. It was one of those going to give me his towel after. It was one of those great moments. And he said, I just want to introduce you to the next champion at the back. And everyone booed. And this tiny wee guy walked in. I mean, he looked like a child. Walked in, a wee schoolboy. And waved and waved and waved. And I saw him climb into the ring against Pat Clinton on the undercard of that fight. And punched Pat Clinton all around the place. He was, and nobody knew how old he was because he had no birth certificate. So he thought he was about 52 and won like 5 titles. I loved Baby Jake Mathala. So that's Glasgow is one of these fight cities, and that's why hopefully we'll bring this show back to Glasgow. We're not touring Glasgow, so the nearest we get is Eastwood. Is the nearest one we get, but that's the closest we'll get. And the idea is to try and bring the show back to Glasgow and Edinburgh next year in a bigger theatre. We couldn't get a bigger venue for it this year, and there's no point in shooting your bolt too early that way. We'll bring it back, get it reviewed, get it on the roads, road harden the show as well. I'm still running about getting bits of costume and things as well, but this is the fun part. This is the fun part of it, when suddenly you go,
you've got a part in it as well, eh?
I was. I've self-cut myself.
Oh.
But so I'm going to do, mine's all going to be recorded. So I was going to play sort of narrator and things as well, but when you look at the old footage of Benny Lynch's fights, it's sort of iconic as well. So the voiceover becomes iconic. Right. And you can't really do it. It needs to be in the play. And you can't do it with me standing there, and there's nowhere for me to do it that would work. So I'm going to take myself out, we're going to pre-record all of that as well. Because it's an RKO. Today, Benny Lynch, 30th of June, Eastwood Park Theatre. He knocked the head off and the British World Champions. And we're going to do it all that way. So it's going to be highly stylised as well. And we're looking at ways of, I don't want to say too much about it. We're looking at ways of doing the fight stuff that's going to look really, really good. Because it's awful hard to do. You're doing a story about a boxer. He meets his wife in a dance hall. So you get boxing scenes and dance scenes. So I said to David Carswell, what the have you done? You've written the hardest play possible to put on. So because you need directors, you need a movement director for that, you need a fight director, it's all got to be signed off, it's all got to be safe, it's got to be able to tour. So that's where we are with it. So, but it's great fun. So that's with my dulcet tones you'll hear throughout it, heavily disguised. But I'm quite happy to be sitting in the audience watching this. It's amazing that you're sitting here, obviously excited. You're like a dog with two tails. We've not been reviewed then. Ask me again in a few weeks. So, like, it's 7 years work. 7 years. 7 years to get here. And it shows you, it takes 10 years to make a film and things, but I didn't realise it took so long to make plays happen from nothing. Because a lot of research goes into it. Listen to Pat and everything talking earlier on, there's so much research goes into it. And I've spent hours and hours and hours, and everything I've got is I've got a room full of research just on this project alone. And all of that then gets sifted down. What do you need, what goes, because you're telling a story and you're making a play. And there'll be some stories there that you have to cut out because it just doesn't fit. And you try and then give that to bits of press, and you try and then if the show then, as we hope, continues and something can keep touring, then little bits can get added and taken out and bits. But also the more you do and the more people talk about Benny Lynch, it starts a conversation again. So it's much like Pat said, he loves passing his research on. That's exactly how we feel as well. There's things that we've got from Sammy Wilson's family as well, just little tidbits, little moments where they met the final time he met Benny Lynch and things as well. And that's now a scene in the play. It's not in any book, and it's living memory, and it's first-hand testimony, because his son's still alive. Rocksteady Eddie, who's brilliant, who's Douglas Wilson's dad, who's Sammy Wilson's son, and he is still full of stories, and he's the last man that I shook hands with on this project who'd shaken hands with Benny Lynch. So you get that electricity of that handshake of passing through the generations. It's almost a relay race when somebody passes you the baton and you go with the story. So you've got responsibility, and there's loads of people who hate it and loads of people who love it, and they'll hate it for different reasons and they'll love it for different reasons. There's the boxing guys, there's the theatre people, there's the real Benny Lynch hardcore supporters. There are those who hate the idea of Benny Lynch and all he stood for. Will still come and see this, and we'll all have their say, and that's what theatre does. It kind of breaks down those barriers, gets everyone together, and then you have a proper conversation about it. Because as you said, you don't judge the past on the current sort of morals. And it's still a great story is a great story is a great story.
Definitely. So you mentioned earlier that Cathkin Park, and you're still heavily involved in that. Benny fought at Cathkin Park. 5
fights he fought at Cathkin Park. So he fought again.
I've found out he did fight at Celtic Park as well.
Oh yeah, he fought at Celtic Park as well. Yeah, absolutely. Well, he was a big Celtic fan. That's the thing. And I think part of the fact that he was fighting at Cathkin was, it was a boxing venue at the time, but Sammy, his coach, was also a third lineup coach. He was a conditioning coach. He was Alex Ferguson of his time. He designed exercises and movements. He said that you would run 100 yards and walk 100 yards between 2 telegraph poles. So Benny, as a boxer, ran further in his morning runs than any other boxer going. So he was getting fitter and fitter and fitter and didn't even realise it. Up and down Cathkin Braes, up and down the terrace at Cathkin. So when we shot the trailer, we replicated all these scenes as well. So it's like Rocky. You get logs behind your head and you run up and down the logs. Benny was doing all that because Sammy trained the old ways. Sammy had been a boxer. But Sammy would have been a champion. But he found there was a guy getting robbed. I think he was a blind news vendor, or he was a blind bookie or something. And anyway, I think he was a news guy and he had money. And he saw his young guys robbing him. So Benny went up behind him, come here you, and battered the two of them, and battered them so much he didn't realise till he walked away that the gristle and knuckles had come through his skin. He'd hit the wall of a tenement behind and went to get it sewn up, and the surgeon said, well, your hands had it. What is it you do, son? He says, I'm a boxer. And then burst out laughing. He went, no, I'm not anymore. And that was the end of his boxing. So he lived, it's like a father wanting to play for Celtic, and his son plays for Celtic. His dreams and ambitions. He had 5 kids of his own. Benny was his favourite son. And they broke his heart. And the saddest part is, and it's not in the play, but the saddest part of it all is that Sammy closed the gym. He was so broken hearted, he closed down the new Polytechnic gym, which is now going to be where Barclays is on the riverside.
Oh, right.
So that's Clyde Place. That's where Barclays are building their big new super centre. That's one of the places where we suggested the Benny Lynch statue should go, because that's where that's where Sammy's gym was. So yeah, he fought Sid Parker. He fought Maurice Hugan in there, and then won the Scottish title against Jim Campbell at Cathkin. He fought him the week before at the British Empire Stadium, I think, or the Scottish Empire Stadium, Glasgow Empire it was. And then 2 weeks later or something, he fought Campbell at Cathkin Park. So it's had the Scottish title won there as well with Benny Lynch. So the links, everything we're doing is obviously linked to Cathkin Park. The company's called Cathkin Park, and it's all to try and raise funds, to try and do bits of restoration as well, and keep it all going and keep it, thriving. So Jimmy Johnson guys are doing great stuff there. We're getting great events down. We had you guys down as well for photo shoots and things recently. It's been fab. So there's lots happening, there's lots of focus on it as well. And the idea is just keep this going, keep this in living memory, because if this starts to fall away again, it's now crumbling. So it's a bit like the wreck of the Titanic or something. You just monitor it and restore what you can, and then ultimately there'll be a museum there. And the more you find out, and the more you do shows with people like Benny Lynch, more fans will come to the ground. Nobody knows Benny Lynch fought there, or few people know. 5 fights. He's a Celtic fan who fights once at Parkhead. 5 fights at Cathkin Park. And
there's the crowds at Cathkin.
Well, the crowds would have been, again, if you imagine the ring was in the pitch, we've got some pictures of it. So we've got a Peter Keenan fight, because he won titles at Cathkin as well. It's a Peter Keenan fight that's actually, you can actually see it, and it's in the middle of the pitch. And obviously the ring area, the sort of ringside seats, the expensive ones, are on the pitch, which ruined the pitches apparently as well. because it was just canvas down and
then
then chairs, you know, and then into the terracing, you know, and the main stand. So the main stand facing the pitch at the middle would have been, and it'd been lit with the floodlights and their own lights as well. So proper boxing nights there. And wouldn't it be great if at some stage we could do this show at Cathkin, outdoor? Wouldn't that be a great thing to do, isn't it? So that'd be the dream.
The last time you were on the podcast, right, you proved to us that you like your Celtic memorabilia, and you came.
Is this where I show you my tattoo?
Hopefully not.
Hang on a minute.
So you came in with poly bags full of stuff. You were in a film recently, 90 Minutes.
Yes,
with Rio Ferdinand.
With cousin Rio.
And I noticed that you were rocking a Joe Venglos.
I was.
Celtic.
I once wore it out running, and I went past a couple of guys with Nez in the street, and they went, "Where did you get that?" Wim Jansen. I thought it was a cracking line. Because I did at the time, it was a Wim Jansen jacket. It was one of those, it was a Wim Jansen jacket. So I was like, I like that line. So I thought, and the reason I got it was because I had it in the cupboard for years, you know, still with all the Celtic strips and all that.
I knew it was yours when I saw it.
Oh yeah, it had to be. But we were playing against a team called something Rangers. I went, oh, it's got to be Celtic. I didn't tell the director, I didn't tell any of them. And I just wore it for the first set. I went, oh, I love the costume, that works great. And I went, good, it's in. I was only down for a day. I wasn't supposed to do a day on it. And then they loved what they saw, and I worked so well with the other coach in it as well. An actor called Vauxhall Germain, who's Uncle Rudy in This Is England. So he's the other coach in it. And they're the ones that take Stephen Graham away at the end of it. And so we got on great, and he said, look, you worked really well, you two together, just keep coming up with some dialogue. I've still not seen the script. Apparently there was a script for that film, and I've still never seen the script. All of that was improvised. So we did, so I ended up doing 7 days on it. I was back filming it last year. Rio Ferdinand saw a cut of it, loved it. And his company then, what they're called New Era, and they now start looking for projects, TV projects, film projects to put their money into as well. A lot of footballers got ripped off years ago. It's a big scheme, and it was supposed to be a big tax avoidance thing or an investment scheme. And I think only Darren Jackson made any money. So a lot of them got. I've talked to quite a lot of players about it afterwards, and they went, "Yeah, we've got."
That seems lots. I remember the story.
Shysters and fly guys will take the money, but Rio seems to be doing it really well. You know, he's lovely. He's just lovely, nice guy, and he supported the whole thing. He put money into it. He then wanted to be in it, so we did some more days filming. He came down and shot a bit because he learned to play at Hackney Marshes. That was his local grounds. He said, "I learned to play the game of football on these grounds."
See the famous pictures.
Yeah,
Hackney Marshes.
It's like the old 50 pictures here. It's just that great, and we've got a great aerial shot of the whole place. So it's right rough, and it's proper Sunday League. And I played Sunday League in London as well, and I played for Birkbeck University at Hackney Marshes. That was our home ground. I played there for about 4 years, so it was great going back to it. You know, hasn't changed. It's just still right rough, but it was baths at those times. It was big, manky, cold, brown, muddy baths with every team in London you played against. And then so we'd play against other universities, and they were like, their home ground was Cobham, which they shared with Chelsea. And the university grounds were
Chelsea still playing Cobham.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Arsenal's training ground as well, and Watford's, and then we'd take them for home games. Hackney Marshes and batter them there, you know, with nets, the holes in it, and all. It's proper balls out Sunday League football. So it was the perfect thing for me. Too old to play in it now, but I thought I'd be the coach. So it was great. So it's been taken on by New Era and Vertigo, who did the Football Factory and these films as well in the business. And they produced it and they fired it out. So it got a limited theatre release down in London. Didn't get a cinema release in Scotland, which is a real pity, because it would have transferred well to Manchester, Liverpool, football cities, Birmingham, Glasgow. It had done really, really well. But it's one of these, the way films are nowadays, they're trying to give it all the way free. Well, not free, but all the way in the same thing overnight. So every downloadable version of it, people have got no attention span, they don't go to cinemas anymore, but they'll watch it on their phone, or they'll watch it on the train. So it's got the chance of being a sort of cult hit. And they're already talking about a sequel now as
well. It's like Netflix.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You can get some put on Netflix.
That's the way people watch it.
And it can take years for
totally.
it to become...
Absolutely. My whole career is now waiting. I'll be long dead by the time they go, oh, that was good. I want to get into that. He was great. Can we do a sequel? I'm going dead. So we're going to wait for the technology to catch up a wee bit as well. But that's the thing, it's just content. Fire it out there. But I loved it. I thought I've got to put a Celtic thing in here somewhere.
I know. As soon as I saw the start, Simon's had that in his
cupboard. It's definitely in from the start. So yeah, it worked really well, but it's a great film. It's a great film. And Rio was lovely, man. So we went down to the Premier. The Premier was just 2 months ago, actually, down in what was it? It was right East End London place. I was at the Blind Beggar and all that before it, the Craze Pub.
The Craze Pub.
I was like, excuse me, where was George Cornell's shot? And the guy said, over here, mate. Put the stool there. We put the stool here every day, and the cleaner makes sure that the stool comes back, and it moves every night. The stool moves, and that's the place where he was shot. And he went, look up there, mate. And I look up, and there's a little picture, framed picture, and like just like wallpaper behind it. When was that? He went, that's the bullet. And the bullet's still on the wall.
The bullet's still on the wall.
Yeah. He said, died right here. He said, sometimes there's a purple stain on the ground and all that. You're like, this is weird, man. So I had about 8 pints in there, then went to the Premier. It was great fun.
Brilliant.
Simon, do it.
Always a pleasure to speak to you. Thanks very much for coming back.
I'll be back. Thanks, man. Great stuff. Thanks, Sam.